This week on Quality Digest Live, don't build your dream house, print it.
That's right. Plus, are typical human behaviors hampering your improvement efforts? That and more when we come back.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for January 27th, 2012. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest Editor-in-Chief Dirk Ducharme. Well, last week we skipped the news, but we're going to return to our normal format today with a pair of news items. This first one is from the University of Arizona. 50 observatories from around the world are going to hook up to capture the first image of a black hole. This is something that's never been imaged before. The 50 observatories are combining their radio telescopes, these are radio telescopes, not optical telescopes, into one really huge telescope called the Event Horizon Telescope. And it is quite literally the size of the Earth.
Amazing.
It's huge. Yeah. The system works something like this. Each telescope, there's 50 of them, will be aimed at the center of our galaxy where scientists believe a black hole exists. Each telescope will collect its own data. Now, recent technological advances have made it possible for this to happen. One of the big issues was you've got 50 telescopes scattered all over the world. The timing of the measurements has got to be synchronized so that everybody can correlate the data later on. And so this is something that's possible now, as well as some of the radio imaging improvements as well. So each observatory will collect its own data. It'll be sent to MIT's Haystack Observatory for processing and hopefully the first ever image of a black hole. Now, the thing that I think is cool about this is simply the coordination and the technology required to take 50 observatories from around the world and the timing for the data and the coordination that it takes for all of these to work together to create an image of something that we've actually, it's only been postulated. And they're actually trying to set out to prove whether some of Einstein's theories are right. Based on his theories, they're expecting to see something in particular about what a black hole looks like. But nobody knows. It's never been imaged. So this is pretty exciting news for these guys.
It is, and it's not directly associated with quality and testing and measurement, but it's just an interesting scientific story.
Yeah, it was collaboration, and that's one thing that we see a lot, particularly in some of our association with, for instance, the CMSC, is that a lot can be done in terms of advancing technology when you've got people collaborating on one huge project, regardless of what their own private agendas are.
Working together, right, great. Thanks, Rick. Good news story. I have one as well. Also in the news this week, the U.S. National Committee to the International Electrotechnical Commission, which is integrated into ANSI, the American National Standards Institute.
That's IEC and ANSI.
And ANSI announced this week that they are seeking nominations for their Young Professionals 2012 workshop. And now, as its name would obviously suggest, this workshop is geared towards those at the start of their careers in the field. It will be held in conjunction with the 76th IEC General Meeting in Oslo, Norway, early October. Now, of course, as we all know, as you all know out there, we at Quality Digest are longtime supporters of ANSI as well as the development of young professionals in industry. So this piece really resonated with us. And you mentioned CMSC before.
Right. There's, I mean, across our industry, there's really a need to be promoting and encouraging young people to get in, regardless whether it's metrology or standards. In the case here, standards. I mean, we need that young blood coming in to keep the momentum going on a lot of the advancements that are being made in technology and standards.
That's right. And when we talk about STEM education, it's important. Science, technology, engineering, and math. So obviously it's no surprise that this program has continued to grow in popularity. I don't think it's any surprise to any of us. Now, the deadline for nominations is April 30th, and you can find further information on this program, including details on how to nominate a young professional, by checking out the story link below the player here or on our homepage at www.qualitydigest.com.
That's right. And hey, keep us apprised, of anything that you think is interesting in terms of advancing education and encouraging youth to get into technology, particularly technology that relates to our industry. So we're talking metrology or standards, anything like that. We really like to cover it because they need all the push they can, particularly when funding starts to dry up on stuff. You got to have somebody out there pushing for it. Okay, our next feature story this week is from Morgan E. Peck, Printing a Home, the Case for Contour Crafting. Now, we've all heard about we've talked about here on the show 3D printing.
Sure.
And we know we've seen 3D printers at various shows. In case you haven't seen them, you certainly have heard about them. You'll have something maybe the size of a refrigerator. And inside it will 3D print from a CAD drawing some sort of thing, usually out of plastic, but sometimes out of metal. And the very interesting thing about 3D printing is these are fully functional parts, even with moving parts. So sometimes you've been to a show, the kind of a common thing to see is somebody will print out an adjustable wrench, like a crescent wrench.
Right.
And it'll come out of the printer fully operational, including the thumb thing moves,
Sure,
and there's no assembly. It's like printed that way, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. Well, there is a professor in Southern California, University of Southern California.
Go Trojans.
That's right. And his name is Barak Kashnevis. He is a professor of engineering and the director for the Center of Rapid Automated Fabrication Technologies, or CRAFT, at USC. And his goal is to create a 3D printer that will print in one day a 2-story house.
2,800 square feet.
A 2,800 square foot house. And his goal is to be able to print that in one day. Now, this isn't just like a theory that's kind of rattling around in his head, and maybe if we do this and do that. He has actually created a small model that was about the size of your 3D printer. He then created a model, now a working prototype of this, that can actually print a concrete structure. Get this, 7 feet tall, 28 feet long, 15 feet wide, basically from a CAD drawing. It uses a combination, right now it's using a combination of cement and fiber, which creates a lightweight, kind of a lightweight composite that dries quickly enough so that he can keep putting on layers at a time as he builds this. And we've got some interesting video I'd like to show of this. So I'm going to come over to my screen here, and let's expand this. Okay, so what you see right now is it's printing the inside of the wall right now. So now it's laying down the outside. First thing it does is it makes a pass, and you can see it's laying down the outside edges of the wall. Remember, this is cement and fiber. This is laid down wet. It's extruded as it goes. Gets to the end of the wall, then it comes back and fills in with this little zigzag pattern. And it just keeps layering these up. And this is done, you can see this is real time. This is how fast this sucker's moving. Now I'm going to pause it right here. You can see the size of this wall right now. It's a little taller than this young woman standing here. This was a straight wall. This wall can print contours as well. I'm just going to scroll down here a little bit. And you can see it's printing now a curved wall. It can print any shape. It doesn't really matter. It's simply doing layer on layer with extrusions. Now here's the cool part coming up right here. This is the way he envisions it working. I'm going to pause it here in just one second. You can see that it is extruding the perimeters of the wall, the interior walls, all the openings, and it just keeps extruding and building this thing up about an inch at a time. Now, in his model, he also has a robot arm on his gantry, and you can see now it's picking up the headers that it's going to drop in over the doors and over the windows. So that's how you get your headers in. And that could be done on the same machine that's actually doing the extruding. It's simply another arm. It's a robot arm. Yeah. Once the headers are down, it then goes back and extrudes over the top of that, and it just keeps on going. This is amazing. It caught NASA's attention. Let me just pause this here. It caught NASA's attention, and they've actually asked him, and I think he's actually already sent it, he sent one of his prototypes to NASA because they're interested in actually using this technology for building structures on the moon. Because it does run semi-autonomously. The only part right now that I think humans are involved in is you have to keep obviously feeding cement into it, the cement and fiber mixture into it so it can continue to extrude. But the extrusion part of it is automated. Yeah. And his goal, I mean, this is kind of cool. His initial goal on this is, or one of his, what he envisions, is that particularly after, let's say, a catastrophe,
earthquake,
hurricane, tsunami. You've got, large floods, let's say Katrina. You've got large portions of cities that are wiped out and need to be rebuilt. Takes a long time. Meanwhile, people are homeless, right? What he envisions is that you come in, you can see, well, we kind of don't see it in here, but this gantry rides on a set of tracks. He envisions, you know, laying down a set of tracks, setting up your gantry. By the way, this whole thing is transportable on 3 trucks. 3 large flatbed trucks can transport the whole mechanism, not including, obviously, the cement trucks that come later. But and running this thing down a gantry and building homes one a day, and you could very quickly...
Sure, every 1,000 feet, just boom,
boom, boom, boom. And
house,
so for emergency housing, this is what he envisions, a very quick method of doing this. But he wants to go further, and other people are talking about taking this further and doing custom homes. There's no reason why you couldn't do a custom home. Now, the other aspect of it, and we don't see it in this video, but there's if you research contour crafting on Google, you'll find a lot of different videos on this. Some of them will show an extra step in here where the robot arm, we showed the robot arm here laying headers over openings. Robot arm could do other things. If you were, as you were extruding the perimeter, you were leaving openings for, let's say, your heating and air conditioning unit, you could do that. You could drop that in.
Drop it in.
So elements, internal elements, infrastructure elements of the building could actually be put in place by the robot as well.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing stuff. I mean, 3D printing run amok. I mean,
well, it's a logical conclusion. That's what we see with these technologies, is that once they're launched and once they're put out there, people run with them and figure out other things to do with it. That's a really interesting application.
I was just blown away when I saw this, and everybody else is too. They're just going, what the heck?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, we won't talk necessarily about what it may do to the building industry at some point, but I mean, that's But as you know, we talked about, I mean, technology is that way. You know, a technology is put into place, and that, you know, yes, it's disruptive at the beginning, but you know, people adjust, and jobs are created by these technologies, really more than they're eliminated.
It's going to be interesting what happens.
We'll see what happens. Great story. Thanks, Derek.
Yeah, sure. Another good story. Davis.
Another good story. Yes, Davis Balistracci. Yes, good friend of ours. Davis Balistracci, who is a frequent contributor, as we all know, to Quality Digest Daily, and before that was a long-time contributor to our old print magazine, Quality Digest, wrote an article that appeared in yesterday's issue of Quality Digest Daily entitled "Frustrated by Glacial Improvement Progress?" And who isn't, right?
That's right.
Of course, we're all frustrated by that. That's the name of the piece. And again, it appeared in yesterday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. You can see it right there on the screen share. Well, as I mentioned, Davis is a frequent contributor, and normally what Davis writes about is statistical analysis, SPC, and using this as a framework for looking at quality improvement.
But he's kind of the Zen master of quality. I mean, he's very interesting. You look at his reading list. Every Christmas he sends us his reading list.
Sure.
There's statistical stuff in there, but there's a lot of other stuff that's kind of really psychology and philosophy oriented. Very interesting.
Brian Joyner, Jim Clemens are a couple of authors that he enjoys a lot, and really approaches it from a unique perspective, but really change management is, I think, what the framework is for this that we're talking about. And Davis uses as an entry point for this the idea of what he and we refer to as the ABCs of change management, of human interaction to new data or new input. And it's interesting how he breaks these out. I want to show this as well so people can look at it on their computers so you can see what these ABCs are all about. Again, ABC. The first one, A, activating experiential event. So that it starts with an event that obviously kicks this off. B, and this is the important one, is the belief that you have about that event, and that builds up based on what your experiences in your life have been up to that point. And C, of course, are the consequential behaviors, at least those that can be observed anyway. So that's the ABC. But now the interesting part about this is A doesn't necessarily lead linearly into B into C. At least it doesn't for the same people in the same way.
Sure.
Davis uses an excellent analogy for this. And the analogy is the activating event of a rainy day. Now, for some of us who are out on a rainy day or see a rainy day, it's depressing. You can't go out, you can't play golf, you have to sit in at home. Others see it as delightful, beautiful, and they want to write poetry and
sit in front of the fire.
Sit in front of the fire and all that. So, but it depends again on your belief system and what that belief system has built up over the course of time. Other experiences that you've had with rain.
Exactly. So belief systems and just your past experience.
Your past experiences that add up into what that is. But that leads again to the C, to the consequential behaviors again. Now, how does this impact quality improvement? Well, you can see, what the analogy and how that would be, because, without the B in this, without the belief system that people can then, take and run with, nothing else works, right? I mean, you have an activating event like you kick off a new initiative, right? Now, if the belief is that it's not going to work for whatever reason, among the individuals who have to carry that out, there's not going to be the consequential behaviors that you want. And the fourth letter that he mentions are the result that you want. Or the result will be one that you don't want.
Well, I think, and is he making the point here, I think, that management doesn't often realize that there's this B aspect. They say, well, we've done this event,
sure,
A, therefore we're expecting C and R, without taking into account where everybody's background and belief and experience is coming from.
Exactly right. Yeah. And what Davis is saying is that B is the most important part of the whole thing. And what he's further saying is that if you have this, if you have Bs that aren't going to work, you need to, before you even really get into even the A, you need to uncover those Bs. And you need to really look at how you can improve that. There's a couple of Bs that we hear a lot that we've heard out there in the field that I think are common. That's the way we've always done it. That's a big B. That's a big belief that needs to be overcome. I don't need to change. Everybody else needs to change. What I'm doing is fine. That's one that you see a lot of. This is just a flavor of the month. It's going to pass in another short period of time, and we'll be on to something else. I've seen this 12 times already in my career here at Company X. Or I'm not good at math. Again, Davis is a statistician. A lot of times looks at these improvement initiatives and wants to measure them, and people's resistance gets up. I'm not a math guy, or I'm not a math gal, and that's not what I do. So these are typical Bs that need to be overcome. A couple of further points that I thought were interesting. I want to call out here. Successful improvement initiatives break down those Bs, and that's really what they have to do. Again, you have to break it down and teach people to embrace new ways of thinking things and not be afraid of doing that. The fear is basically what is the big problem here. And if you have people see it for what it is, they can overcome it and they can move beyond it. That's really important. Another one is what you tolerate in your organization defines your culture. I really like that because organizational cultures are built kind of brick by brick, and they're built on actions, not words. You may say something, but if you let that go, that's what's going to define you. And the other thing which I think is important is there's no secrets in an organizational culture. Everyone knows who the saboteurs and the stragglers and the stonewallers are. And if you, again, tolerate that, let those people define it, the rest of the team who may really desperately want the change are going to be, it's going to pervade their belief system as well. So you have to, Davis recommends being kind of draconian. You may have to terminate people to get beyond that and to move beyond it and to really improve the organization. So again, this article I think was really interesting. It was a psychological article, something that I like because it talks about change, why people are resistant to change, and what you can do about it. So,
Davis is always interesting. I mean, it is important. You've got to keep in mind that when you're implementing change, you have to keep in mind that there is a construct that everybody has that they work within, and you've got to, if you don't understand that, you're not going to get anywhere. There's going to be some real problems.
And let me point out also, before we move on, that this was part one of a two-part article. Davis has promised to give us a further deep dive into this topic. And we're trying to get Davis onto the show next article.
That'll be fun. We'll bring him on via Skype.
Via Skype, and we'll chat with him about these ideas and get into it a little deeper. So look for that in an upcoming show.
Sounds good. Cool. Okay, let's move on to our tech corner today. What we're going to look at today is a product from MicroRidge. This is the MobileCollect. This is a wireless measurement system. Essentially what it does is it allows you to take any of your digital gauges and make them wireless. So rather than having your tether running off, if anybody's ever used tethered data collection devices, you know the issues that you can have with that. This will take any of your digital gauges and make them wireless. And it's very simple to use. So I'm going to come over here to our gauge cam.
The gauge cam.
The gauge cam. And kind of show you what this is, what MicroRidge, what their MobileCollect system is made up of. What I have here right in front of me, this is simply a Mitutoyo 6-inch caliper, absolute digimatic. You see the display on the front, but on the back, we have got the MicroRidge module. You'll see it's about 2 inches long, maybe 1.5 inches wide, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch thick, and it's tethered to the gauge by this little interface cable. That's all there is to it, to the remote module. This is what goes on to your digital gauge. The other half of this is the MobileCollect USB base. This is the receiver, I guess you could call it, and simply tethered via a USB cable into my laptop. That is all there is to it, and this works surprisingly simple. So we're going to go to our screen share right here. I've got a simple Excel document, and anytime I click the data collection button on my gauge, my caliper, you see the number shows up in Excel. So it doesn't, and this will actually operate up to 165 feet away from the base. So from the measurement device to the base can be up to 165 feet. And so you can take your data pretty much anywhere you want. Now, we're collecting this into Excel. We could collect it into any piece of software you're running. It could be your favorite SPC software, it could be Excel, it could be Word, it could be an email document. And the reason for this is because what comes with the MicroRidge gauges is a simple little piece of software called Wedge Link Express. Very basic. All this does, it's really pretty clever, all it does is it takes the data that comes into the base anytime you click the measurement key and converts it into keystrokes. So as far as the computer is concerned, anytime you hit the measurement button, it just thinks somebody has typed in data. So it doesn't matter where the cursor is at. If the cursor happens to be an Excel spreadsheet in a cell, that's where the data appears. If it happens to be in your favorite SPC software, wherever that cursor is, that's where the data appears. So very simple. So let's talk about a couple of features of this before we move into the setup. As I mentioned, it has a range of 165 feet. And it will, I mentioned that this will connect to any of your digital gauges. The reason for that is the secret is in, obviously, the interface cable that I'm showing here on our little camera, on our gauge cam. This cable, they make cables that will connect to Mitutoyo, Silvac Opto, LMI, Starrett, Mar, Fowler Opto, Brown and Sharp Opto. I think there's an Ono Soki. So, I mean, any common gauge digital gauge that you have on your shop floor, more than likely there is a cable that is going to connect to it. Also, you're not locked in to the cable. The cable and the box are two separate entities. So the remote module, if I wanted to change this from a Mitutoyo and connect it to, let's say, an Ono Soki gauge, all I would do was pop off 3 screws, take off the back, replace the cable, put the back on, plug it in. 3 or 4 minutes, I've switched gauges.
Good to go.
So good to go. Very simple. We'll get it. This also has an internal antenna, which I'll get back to in a little bit, and it only weighs 1.5 ounces. So this is actually it affects the balance a little bit, but not a whole lot. It's very light. Actually, almost a better balance than if you've used a gauge that has a cable hanging off it and you're dragging it. This actually works much better. And wireless is the way to go. And we'll get to some of the worries some of you have about wireless in just one second. But first of all, let's go into the setup. So let me close out of a couple of documents here, and let me get out to my desktop here, and we'll load the yes, if I can figure out how to run my own computer, we'll get out here to the
can't get Davis out of our
MobileCollect Express. Okay, so we're into the MobileCollect setup. This is basically what you need to do to set up your MobileCollect wireless system. It does almost everything for you. It's pretty straightforward. I open up the MobileCollect, I say find the base unit. It takes a couple seconds, and it will suck in the data from the base unit. So everything we need to know about the base unit is now populated in here. I can change some settings on the base unit if I wanted to. I could change the transmit frequency. We'll get to that in a second. You can also control the setup for the mobile module, itself. So if I want to change how the mobile module is configured, I can do that. Some of the things you might do with that is, this is currently set up to take a single measurement anytime I click the measurement key. But I could set it up for continuous measurement. Or maybe I want it to, whenever I tell it to take a measure, I want it to take 20 measurements or 30 measurements with one tap of the key. I can do that. Or I can say, take measurements for 30 seconds. So those are ways that you can configure the module. The module can also, if you have the right module, the module can also be configured to accept commands. So the way I've been running the caliper here, I've been telling it to take data by clicking the button. You could also run unattended, which if you had some sort of automated fixture with some digital indicators, you could send a command to the fixture saying, take a measurement right now and run it unattended. You don't need somebody to click the button. Okay, so let's get to the important thing. I'll swing back around here. We get to the important thing. The big question a lot of people have, a lot of the worries they have about wireless devices is, if you have experience with wireless gauging, you may have had problems in the past because sometimes if you work in a very noisy RF environment, you have welders, or maybe you have a lot of other communications equipment running, that you can have RF interference, which can cause problems with some RF-based wireless gauging systems. MicroRidge has really kind of taken care of that problem with their MobileCollect. And here's what they do. There's a couple things. Number one, they work in the Wi-Fi range, the 2.45 gigahertz range. Now, when we first heard that, we were a little worried because our thought was, oh my gosh, you're going to try to operate in the same frequency range as all my Wi-Fi, and I know here we've got 5 Wi-Fi channels running.
Yep.
So the way they get around that is, number one, their center frequency isn't a center frequency of one of the Wi-Fi channels. Same frequency range, not the same center frequencies. So they tend to be off-band. But even if there was overlap, the transmitter only comes on for milliseconds. So your Wi-Fi isn't even going to see the transmit come on. The Wi-Fi is going to blow right past it. So will the gauge. If there was any problem, they have a little utility on here called an RF Channel Sniffer, which simply goes out and scans the frequency range that the MobileCollect works in, and looks for what are the busy RF channels, and simply tells you, look, these channels are busy, why don't you check, why don't you select channel 24 instead? Right. And you would simply reprogram this and you'd be good to go.
Simple green, yellow,
green, very obvious, very simple to set up, and then you would simply upload that channel change to the device. Perfect. And you're good to go. One last thing. Because of this little thing I told you about where it only transmits for milliseconds, this is what allows them to have a single base but hundreds of gauges, because the odds are 2 gauges are not going to try to come up and transmit at exactly the same time. Even if in the rare occurrence that might happen, the gauges will simply detect that and retry. So it's not an issue. So hundreds of gauges, a single base if that's the configuration you want. So very cool. So what we've got here, relatively inexpensive device. The whole system, a remote module, a cable, and the base. $750. Great. If you wanted 4, if you wanted say 1 base and 4 remotes, less than $1,800. So really, you could really get outfitted for wireless gauging very quickly. Very robust, works in noisy RF environments, lightweight, 165-foot range. You're good to go. It's pretty cool.
Perfect kind of a thing we like to show off here on Tech Corner.
That's right.
I mean, it's ultimate. I mean, basically, you said it right there. It's compact. It's affordable, it's effective, it's a unique technology. Great. Hey, if you have a Tech Corner product or software, hardware that you'd like us to demo for you here on Quality Digest Live, just email us and let us know. The email address again, qdl@qualitydigest.com.
And by the way, you don't have to be a vendor. Typically, these get sent to us. I mean, honestly, these get sent to us by companies that want us to highlight their product. But maybe there's a product you're interested in, and you just want us, hey, can you contact Acme Corporation, see if they're willing to send you something to demo. I'm sure if we contacted Acme and said, hey, we got some people out there that want to see your product, I'm sure they would send it to us.
I'm sure they would. And thank you for MicroRidge for sending that, and thank you, Derek, for doing that demo. Great. All right, well, next week on Quality Digest Daily, we have a very interesting article from one of our favorite contributors, Donald Wheeler, PhD. Don Wheeler, one of the eminent statisticians working in the field today. His article is, If It Ain't Broke, Problems with Narrowly Defined Projects. And that's a good topic. Very good topic, and that's one that I think maybe a lot of you are struggling with. So look out for that next week in Quality Digest Daily.
That's right, and also for all of you who are familiar with Technorazzi, if you're not familiar with it, Technorazzi is a live 1-hour program that we do usually from either a trade show floor or sometimes right from a manufacturer's, an equipment manufacturer's floor where we demo the latest in cutting-edge metrology and software equipment related to the quality industry. We have 2 coming up, and you don't want to miss these. The first up is Carl Zeiss Industrial Metrology on Tuesday, February 14th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, live from the floor of the MD&M West in Anaheim. That's the medical device show in Anaheim. We'll be demoing Zeiss's Micura CMM as well as the Surfcom Flex portable surface measuring instrument. Also, another Technorazzi is going to be coming live from Hexagon Metrology on Thursday, March 23rd, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And this is going to be at their North American headquarters in North Kingstown, Rhode Island. We'll be looking at a yet-to-be-announced technology from Hexagon on that Thursday. So something new, something we don't even know what it is. We're just going to show up and we'll find out, and so will you.
That's
live.
right. And then the following day, the Friday, March 23rd, we're going to be sticking around at Hexagon, and we're going to be doing Quality Digest Live right from their offices. So
that's right. So you don't want to miss it. And you should be getting emails. You should be getting an email blast that's announcing both of those also as well.
That's right.
Upcoming weeks. So.
That's right. So look out for that.
Yep.
So before we close this week, we have a joyfully sad event, or a sadly joyful event, depending on how you want to look at it.
Get out the cry cam.
Oh, well, we have an individual on our team that is leaving us today. It's her last day, Kimber Evans, and I can't even begin to even describe everything that Kimber does for us.
That's right.
And everything that she's done.
She's our resident female geek.
That's right, which is very, very rare and very important. Right. But Kimber, I'll say it, thank you for everything. You have been beyond any of our expectations, and you have done so much for us that we can't even begin to thank you.
Yeah, Kimber's behind the scenes, by the way. You don't know this, but Kimber is our
stage manager.
Our stage manager, our production assistant. She's also a salesperson, and she also handles tracking all the statistics for our advertisers in terms of how our readership's doing, how our ads are doing, and so forth. So she's going to be very big shoes to fill, except Kimber isn't that big.
Very small, big shoes.
Very small, big shoes to fill. Yes, right.
But many of you have interacted with Kimber, and the responses that we've gotten when Kimber has informed people that she's left is an indication of how much she will be missed and how much she is loved by all of us. Kimber, by all of us.
Okay.
And thank you for everything.
So we don't know if you can continue to hold up the teleprompter there. Oh, well, that's simple enough.
There it is.
There we go. Wrap up and close. I guess that falls to me. So once again, thank you all for joining us this Friday for Quality Digest Live. Hope the show was interesting for you. Hope we gave you some good information. And we will see you again next Friday.
Have a great weekend.
So long.
Bye.